I begin in the name of the God whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is forever. After having presented the understanding of why I believe in God as I have understood from the Quran, now I move on to the next question. How to establish living relationship with God? Obviously, it's not enough for us to acknowledge and confirm that God's there. That is important, obviously, but that's not enough. How can we feel comfortable that we acknowledge that there is a creator who created us and is all the time ensuring that our needs are met, etc. And we do nothing to come close to Him, to have a living, real, genuine relationship with Him. How do we do it? There are certain limitations that we must understand and acknowledge first. One of them is that we can't see God. Living in this world the way we are with our limitations, it's not possible for us to see God. The Quran mentions in Surah Al-An'am, Surah number 6, verse 103, La tudrikuhul absar. Eyes cannot grasp Him, and He grasps all eyes. We know that the great prophet Musa alayhi salam, he asked God that he wanted to see Him, and he was very clearly informed that that's not possible. And there was a certain experience that Moses was required to go through, which ultimately meant the same thing, that we cannot see God. The other limitation is that, okay, we can't see Him, but is it not possible that we be referred to something else which is similar to God, and we can imagine about God through looking at what is similar to God? The Quran tells us that that too is not possible. In Surah 42, Surah Shura, verse 11, the Almighty says, Laysa kamithlihi shay'un. There is nothing similar to God. So that possibility is also ruled out. Now then, what else is possible? The Quran tells us that the only way we can have a relationship with God, a real, genuine relationship with Him, is through His attributes. We should understand His attributes, we should think about them, we should live them. We should live a life which is in accordance with the expectations of His attributes. But before that, we must know that God has all the good attributes. That's one thing that the Quran has informed us. In chapter 17, Surah Bani Israel, verse 110, towards the very end, the Almighty tells us, it's the same, just the same. Quridullaha vidur Rahman, you call Him by the name Allah or Rahman. Ayyamma tad'uhu, no matter what name you call Him by, doesn't make any difference. Falahul asmaul husna, because He's got all the good names. All names of God are a reflection of one attribute of Him or another. So God has all the good, great attributes. Another information about His attributes provided by the Quran is that all His attributes are perfect. Many of His attributes are shared by us as well. He has control. We have some might, some control as well. He is wise, while we do also have some wisdom. He can see, we can see as well, etc. But the difference is that while our attributes, all of them, are limited, restricted in their possibilities, God's attributes are perfect. So, person can be alim, knowledgeable. God is al-alim, the knowledgeable. So, in order for us to do justice with mentioning God's names, in Arabic, they've always got to be preceded by al, the. That probably is the closest translation in English. Al-Alim, the knowledgeable, the one who knows. That is, the one whose knowledge is perfect, complete. It has no weakness. That's the other aspect of God's attributes. A third aspect is that all of His attributes are simultaneously functioning. They are operating side by side without disturbing or asking for compromise from others to not be effective. So His attributes are all simultaneously functioning. When we are able to understand to some extent all these points, that is, His attributes are all perfect, all good attributes belong to Him, and all of these attributes that He possesses, they are simultaneously functioning. We are able to solve some of the problems, puzzles, riddles that some people have in their minds regarding God and the way He is running the affairs of this world. You know, I talked about earlier about the question of predestination, and I also mentioned that the Prophet, may God's mercy be on him, discouraged some of his companions from discussing predestination. But the fact of the matter is that if we just have a look at the two important attributes of God that are influencing this understanding, they are the ones which are causing this understanding to emerge. If we know them, we would know that this whole idea of predestination, even though we cannot fully grasp it, we can understand it at a preliminary level. God's knowledge on the one hand and His justice on the other, when they're both understood alongside each other, simultaneously operating, we know what it is all about. What I'm going to do tomorrow or in the future is what God already knows. But God is fair and just, and therefore I'm going to be held accountable only for what I'll do on my own, at my own volition. Now, His knowledge is perfect, His justice is perfect. The two are simultaneously functioning. Therefore, God knows that what I'm going to do, I will do on my own. I'll not be forced to do the acts that I'll perform. So, that solves the problem. Now, obviously, it's not a great idea that we start going beyond our limits of understanding to be able to more fully understand how all this is going to be possible, because that would mean that we'll be going beyond our limits, beyond the possibilities of our intellect. Let's take another example. There are people who believe that because God is merciful, therefore, no matter how much wrong you do, you'll have no problems in the next life. He's merciful. He's forgiving. But On the other hand, God is fair and just as well. And therefore, people who have done wrong beyond a certain limit, they ought to be punished. But the people say, who have focused their attention more on His attribute of mercy, they don't understand how the process of accountability is going to take place. We put the two attributes together and understand them, we would know how both are simultaneously possible. While the attribute of justice requires that people are going to be treated fairly, and what it means is all humans are going to be held accountable in accordance with the same set of principles. It's not going to be that one individual belonging to a certain family, a certain nation, a certain religion will get favorable treatment, but others are not going to be looked upon favorably by the Almighty. That would be unfair. So God is going to be fair to all. But then God is also merciful. So in order for Him to be merciful, He'll make sure that the minimum expectation for an individual to succeed is going to be lowered because He's merciful. So the two put together makes it possible that we understand the concept. So what I'm trying to say is that in order for us to be able to understand God through His attributes, we must make sure that we are understanding all His attributes together. Now, let's look at this question. How to have a living relationship with God? You see, the answer is that we should live our lives being fully conscious of His attributes. When we'll do that, it will affect us. It will influence us. For example, His attribute of knowledge, what it essentially entails is that He knows everything. He knows what I do in public as well as what I do in the private, in the light of the day as well as in the darkness of the night. He, in fact, knows my intentions as well, my motives. The more I am going to focus on understanding the attribute of knowledge of God and applying it on myself, the more I am going to become God conscious. How is it possible that a person believes in a knowledgeable God who knows everything, even the inner intentions of an individual, would continue to do wrong, would insist that what he or she is doing is not objectionable, and feel comfortable with it? It's not possible. So, if we believe in a God who is knowledgeable, who knows everything, it would definitely influence our behavior, our attitude towards others, attitude towards life. Likewise, God is wise, and His wisdom is also complete, perfect. But that's what we understand. Then, when in our life we experience ups and downs, difficulties as well, tragedies that we are not able to understand properly. Obviously, as humans, when we are going through phases of life where we are not particularly comfortable, we are disturbed, we are shocked, we are sad, we are depressed. It is something that happens because we are humans and weak. But then comes this attribute of the wisdom of God Almighty, it comes to our rescue. And we tell ourselves that if what has happened is because we did something wrong, we must correct ourselves. But beyond that, what has happened because God allowed it to happen. I must correct myself. I must do whatever was needed for me to not allow something negative to happen. But if I feel comfortable that what I did was not particularly wrong, and something happened to me which was beyond my control, it must have been done by God. God doesn't do anything unwise. God is wise. So, an understanding of God's wisdom, perfect wisdom, enables the individual to feel comfortable despite things happening which otherwise could not be explained. Similarly, we know that God is hearing. He is As-Sami. When we are confident that God hears, and we are confident that God has control, He is Al-Qadir. He has control over everything. The two attributes, they enable us to be inclined to ask God for help. We pray because we know God hears. Well, we know God knows everything. So sometimes we don't even speak in a volume which is audible, because God can hear anything. He can actually hear or read our feelings as well. So, that confidence in God and His ability, His attribute of hearing, knowing, along with our conviction that God has control over everything. He doesn't need to ask anybody to do things that we are asking Him to do for us. So that inclines us to pray to God, to seek His help, to continue to talk to Him, for Him to be able to help us out in different aspects of life. That again is an attribute or attributes which enable us to come close to God, to establish a real, genuine relationship with God. God is merciful. He's kind. As humans, we do things wrong at times, unwittingly, at times deliberately. Sometimes we do things wrong which are not major, they're minor evil acts. Sometimes we do things wrong which are really evil, major sins. And when somebody does something of that sort, it really is very depressing. It's something that causes the individual to feel as if he or she is distanced from God by a big margin, and there's at times a feeling as if nothing can be done about it. We cannot undo what has been done. We cannot come close to God anymore, which is the biggest loss that one can suffer in this worldly life. But then we know that God is merciful. God is kind. God is forgiving. Now the understanding and appreciation of this attribute enables us to seek His forgiveness. When we do it with the conviction, with the confidence that God is forgiving, God is merciful, He is kind, and we do it honestly, we do it sincerely, God forgives. So what I'm trying to say is that a proper, genuine understanding of God's attributes enables us humans to be able to live a life wherein we are in contact with God. We have a genuine relationship with Him.